really good conversations about integrity in our class tonight, and about the three Hebrew young men that stood up for what they believed in against a very difficult situation. And so it's great that we talk about being made in the image of God. That's why we all started, that we're made in the image of God. And one of the characteristics of God is that He is integrity. So anything God tells us is true. And when we meet with you all, like we had some really good questions tonight in Jim's group, some real honest questioning by the guys, and we appreciated that, and they were real with us. But the deal is, God is telling us the truth. And He knows that other people are telling us lies, and so it would be wrong for God to let other people tell us lies and not do anything about it. So He continues to work in our hearts to show us the truth. And tonight we're going to talk about integrity under fire, and meaning that it's in difficult times. And so there will be conflict and challenges and controversies that will come up in your life and in my life that will challenge our faith and our beliefs, our core beliefs. And that's when we have to have courage to stand up and have integrity in those moments. What is it that causes us to turn away from our core beliefs? When we do working out, like we want to do curls and get our biceps big so we can kind of show off our biceps like this. But what do they teach us if we go to training? Build up our core. Build up your core strength, your inner body. That's where you have to start. And so we have our core beliefs, and the number one belief that we all need to have strong is integrity. That will guide everything else. So what is it that challenges our integrity, or what are the conflicts that we have? It can be things like having favor with someone else, or the fear of losing having someone like you or their favor. It's like King Nebuchadnezzar and the three guys we studied tonight. King Nebuchadnezzar said about them that they were 10 times better than all the other guys. And he promoted them and gave them important positions. So the fear of losing that favor, hearing those nice words about you, the pat on the back, the promotion, can cause you to lose your integrity. You can sell your integrity for that. What else? Your position, perks, money. We're going to see a video in a little while about a guy who was offered more money if he would cheat. And we'll see what he did. Did he sell? Did he give up his integrity for some more money or not? And another one is friendships. It says when we studied the three Hebrew children that when King Nebuchadnezzar said, "Everyone bow down to me, to my statue." Let me read verse 9. Let's see here. As soon as they heard the sound, all the people, nations, and men of every language fell down and worshiped the image. Everyone else fell down and worshiped except these three guys. So intimidation from the crowd, peer pressure, can cause us to give up our integrity, to being embarrassed or ashamed. For me, that's a big deal. I don't like to be embarrassed or put in embarrassing situations. So if I can say something or do something to keep myself out of that situation, I might hedge on the truth or hedge on my integrity. And I'm confessing to you all now, I like to be a man of integrity, and I like to hear my wife say, "I love you because I know you're an honest man, you're a good man." I like to hear that, but also in my heart, I know I haven't always been able to live up to that. And I regret that. So paying taxes, some people have money. We know a man who has $1 million, but he doesn't want to report all of the money that he's giving to people by cash because he doesn't want to have to report it to the IRS. He has $1 million. Why would he do that? To give up his integrity over a few dollars of taxes that he doesn't want to pay. And even grades. One of the stories of my life is when I was in graduate school, in engineering school, I became a Christian that fall in college. And I turned my life over to Christ, and I wanted to live for Christ. But I was around about a dozen engineering guys that were in graduate school together, that we had gone through school together. We knew each other, and they knew the old me. They knew I was not an exemplary person at that time in my life. And I wanted so much to live for Christ. I loved Christ, and I loved the fact that he had forgiven me of my sins and that he was going to give me a better life. And but I thought, how can I show these other guys that I'm different now? Because they still just know the old me. When I come down here to the lab, we all had a desk in the lab together. They just know me like the old me. Well, God took care of that in an unusual way. We had a big test that counted for a lot of part of our grade. And during this test, I had some problems came up in this test. And I just reached down under my desk and pulled up my book, flipped over to this chart, because in engineering school you have a lot of numbers and charts and formulas and tables that you have to remember. And if you don't know them, you can look in your book and get those numbers. So I just looked up that number and put it in. I could solve the problem, get the problem right, move on to the next one. And but anyway, after the test, some of our engineering tests were open book tests because there were so many charts and tables you couldn't remember them all. And so after the test, we go back down to the lab, and the guys down there said, "Hey, you really pulled one off today." I'm going like, "What do you mean?" They said, "We saw you. You pulled your book out and looked up those numbers. And we had to remember them." And I'm going, "I know it's an open book test." They said, "No, closed book test. You were not supposed to open your book during that test. You cheated. You'll probably make a better score than we did." And, oh, man, that just about killed me, because here I was. I wanted to show the guys that I was changed man, that I was a child of God now, and I was walking with Christ. And here, instead, I'm a cheater. And they saw me. And I just thought, my testimony for Christ is ruined. What have I done? And it really bothered me. And so finally, I knew what I had to do. So I went and found the professor, and I told him what I did. And I said, I was wrong. I thought it was an open book test. It wasn't. I looked up those numbers. So whatever you have to do, I'm okay with it, because I did wrong on that test. And I want to tell you the truth. So he said, "Okay, well, let me think about that." And so in a little while, he called me back in, and he said, "Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Since you were honest enough to tell me that, here's your test. Here's the key, the answers to all the questions. You take this out and you grade your own paper, and anything that was wrong that you knew you couldn't have gotten right without looking in your book, you count it wrong. You grade your own paper and bring it back to me." And that's what I did. And I wound up making an A in the course before it was all over. But he was a good enough person. He could have just given me an F, thrown me out of the class, but he didn't. And he respected the fact that I told the truth. So then when I was able to go and tell my friends what happened, that was the first time that they saw that I really wanted to be changed and wanted to really live for Christ. So you never know how God is going to use your integrity in a conflict, in a hard time, to be a witness to other people. Even though sometimes it may not turn out so good. like the young lady at Columbine, you all were talking about her earlier, someone held a gun to her head and said, just deny Christ and I won't shoot you. And she didn't do it. And she was killed because she would not deny Christ. And we've read stories of missionaries on foreign fields and other people who have stood up for their integrity was so strong, it cost them their life. And even these 3 Hebrew children, the same thing was true. They were willing. They told Nebuchadnezzar, we know that God can save us if he wants to, but guess what, King? Even if he does not, we want you to know, O King, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image that you have set up. Even if God doesn't save us, we don't care. And then later on, Nebuchadnezzar said, they have defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than worship any god except their own God. So some people have been willing to even go to death because their integrity was so strong it overpowered any conflict that could come into their lives. So it brings up the question. So sometimes we give up our integrity, I wanted to say this too, because we are intimidated or threatened or yelled at. I have people, I'm 70 years old, I have people who come in my office who try to get me to cheat on my responsibilities as a city engineer and let them get around rules and regulations. And sometimes they try to be sweet to me. They try to kind of bribe me. Sometimes, though, they threaten me and try to intimidate me or yell at me and be mean to me to try to get me to change and let them do what they want to do, even though they know it's wrong. So I have to stand up against that. And there are consequences. So like the 3 Hebrew children, they were intimidated, threatened, and yelled at by King Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, it said that he was very furious with rage. Rage is like when your anger is just out of control and you just lose it. He lost it with them, and he was furious and yelled at them and threatened them and said, heat the fire up 7 times hotter. He was putting a lot of pressure on them to change their mind and do what he asked them to do. And I can't believe, really, it's amazing how strong these guys are, that they stood up against all that intimidation and pressure and those threats and said, we're not going to do it. In fact, they said in verse 7, they are, 16, I think here. They said, King, there's no need for us to defend ourselves to you. What that means is they were saying, we're not going to make any excuses here. We're not going to try to talk you out of this. We're not going to try to defend our position or have a dialogue with you. We know it's useless. So just whatever you're going to do, you do it. We're not going to try to defend ourselves to you, but we're not going to bow down to that image. Wow, their integrity is unreal. So the question we have is, what would it cost us? What would we sell our integrity for? How much money would it take? How much pressure would it take to get us to do something wrong or go against what we know is really the right thing to do? How much pressure would it take? And so I think I'll stop there just except to say this, that God is a God of integrity, as I said before, and what he wants us to do is be children who are made in the image of God. So when the question came up tonight about why would God not let us worship other gods? Or why would he just want us to worship him only? or other people only worship God. And so it's kind of like this. If you were God and you knew that you made the earth and you created man and woman and all mankind, and that you had worked throughout the generations to get them to respect you and to honor you, and that you had planned eternal life for all these people and a good life on earth and created all the good things on earth. And over time, they didn't follow you because other people drew them away and distracted them and created other things for them to do that drew them away from you, and you knew that those other things were not really good for them and that they were false, they were lies, and they were trying to be drawn away from you. And finally, you sent your only son to earth to die on the cross for them. And you told them, as many as believe him, to them, they can be called the children of God. All you have to do is believe in my son, and you can be a child of God and have eternal life. And you did all that, but other people still continued to try to lie, make up other stories and other ideas and draw people away, and you saw them being drawn away toward things that you knew were going to be bad for them in the end. How would you feel if you were God and you saw that happening? Would you be upset with those people and those other ideas and other gods that were drawing them away from you? You would. And that's why God says in the scripture that he is a jealous God. He wants us to love him, and he is very hurt and jealous, even angry, when we love something else more than him. So God is a God of integrity. If he didn't tell us the truth, and if he didn't try to win us to himself, instead of letting us go off to other things, he would not be a man of integrity. He would not be a God of integrity. So the number one part of God's integrity is that he insists that we know the truth and choose the best thing for our lives. So now we're going to watch a little video clip, and I want you to watch for these things. This is a story of Javier, who is a man who lost his job. He finally got another job working in a factory, and he's working in the factory when we start seeing this video, and an amazing thing happens. He gets a job offer for a promotion and more money, and his wife is so happy because they have been just barely making it. They haven't been able to pay their bills, and now they're able to pay their bills. And so Javier, but the problem is he's asked to do something that he feels is dishonest. And they put pressure on him. They say to him, aren't you on our we want you to be on our team. Are you on our team or not on our team? And he has to think about that. And his wife even tries to get him to go along with it. She said, Javier, maybe it isn't wrong. Maybe it just looks like it's wrong, but it's not really wrong. So he has to think about that. And his wife, she's in tears over this. And he's offered a position and to oversee other people, to have more responsibility, more pay. But in the end, listen to what he says. He says, it would be dishonoring to God and my family, to my God and my family, to lie about the reports. And so at the end, you'll see they say that they have tried 6 other men. They tested Javier to see if he would be honest under fire, have integrity under fire. And he was the 7th person that they did this to. And the other 6 men failed. Sometimes when we follow God's leading, even and we're strong with integrity, we're honored like that. Sometimes, though, it doesn't work out, and he might have lost his job, but he would have still made the right decision, and God would have taken care of him some way. God will always keep us from falling. He'll catch us and make sure that we're on the right path. So let me just close by reading. After the 3 Hebrew children came out of the fire, then Nebuchadnezzar said, Nebuchadnezzar, he's this big, belligerent, proudful, egotistical king. And he said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him, and they defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their houses be burned, turned into piles of rubble. For no other God can save in this way." And then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.